Imagine it's 8 p.m. on January 8, 2026. You're standing on a residential street in Tehran's Sattar Khan neighborhood. The electricity has been flickering for hours, nothing unusual in a country where the power grid runs on prayers and smuggled spare parts. But then your phone dies, not the battery, the signal. Every app goes dark simultaneously. WhatsApp, Telegram, Instagram, even your VPN. You look down the street and see fires, not trash fires, car fires. The air smells like burning rubber and something else, tear gas, maybe pepper spray. You hear chanting, "Death to the dictator." Then you hear something that makes your blood stop. Automatic gunfire, not warning shots over heads, direct fire, into crowds. Within 6 hours, Tehran's Karazak morgue will receive pickup trucks carrying bodies, rows of them. A 16-minute video will leak showing at least 366 corpses piled inside, gunshot wounds, shotgun pellets, gashes from close-range beatings. Forensic staff will label photos number 47 of 250, then number 189 of 250, then stop counting. This isn't fiction. This is Iran, January 2026. And by the time you finish this video, you'll understand how a currency collapse triggered the bloodiest crackdown in the Islamic Republic's 47-year history, and why what happens next could reshape the entire Middle East. Stick with me. Let's rewind to December 28th, 2025. Tehran's Grand Bazaar. Early morning. You're a mobile phone merchant. You've worked these narrow passages for 20 years. Your father worked them before you. The stall you rent isn't much, maybe 10 square meters, but it's enough to feed your family, pay for your son's university tuition, and save a little for the year your daughter gets married. Except this morning, the math doesn't work anymore. You bought your inventory, Chinese smartphones, Bluetooth headphones, charging cables, at an exchange rate of 1.37 million Rials per dollar. Standard rate for December 26th, you priced everything with a 15% markup. Tight margins, but sustainable. Then overnight, the Rial collapses to 1.44 million per dollar. Your inventory just became worthless. If you sell at yesterday's prices, you lose money. If you raise prices to match the new exchange rate, customers will riot or just not buy. So you do what hundreds of other bazaar merchants do. You close your shop. Here's the kicker. This wasn't a normal market fluctuation. This was structural demolition. The Iranian government runs a multi-tier exchange rate system. Regime-connected firms, IRGC subsidiaries, government importers, politically loyal businesses get access to subsidized dollars at artificially low rates, let's say 500,000 Rials per dollar. Meanwhile, ordinary merchants like you access the open market, where the real rate floats based on supply, panic, and the government's credibility or lack thereof. When inflation hits 48.6% in October 2025, then crosses 52% by December, people stop trusting the Rial entirely. They want dollars, they want gold, anything except the melting ice cube in their wallets. And the government? Silence. No policy announcement, no reassurance, just nothing. That silence transforms an economic problem into a political crisis. Because when the state won't even acknowledge the disaster, citizens conclude one of two things. Either the government is incompetent, or it's complicit. By mid-morning December the 28th, shop closures spread through the bazaar like a contagion. By afternoon, word reaches Isfahan, Mashhad, Shiraz. By evening, it's not just merchants, it's students, oil workers, truckers, unemployed youth who've been dead inside for years, watching their nation's oil wealth fund Hezbollah in Lebanon while they can't afford fruit. The numbers: fruit prices up 75% year over year. Bread and grain nearly doubled. Youth unemployment, ages 15 to 24, hovers between 20 and 23%. That's triple the national average, and Iran's sitting on some of the largest oil reserves on Earth. One protester will later tell journalists, "I'm not scared. For 47 years, I've been dead." That's not a slogan. That's a psychological state. When fear of death stops being a deterrent because existence already feels like death, you get something unstable, something combustible. Before we go further, you need to understand this isn't Iran's first rodeo. This is the fourth major uprising in 17 years, and the regime has learned from every single one. 2009, the Green Movement. Millions take to the streets after a disputed presidential election. Mir Hossein Mousavi claims fraud. The government announces Mahmoud Ahmadinejad won 2/3 of the vote. Tehran sees the largest protest since the 1979 revolution. The regime suppresses it through arrests, beatings, limited killings. Green movement fails. Why? It stayed political. It didn't threaten the system's economic base, and it didn't fracture the security forces. 2019, bloody November. Government triples fuel prices overnight. Protests erupt across 130 locations. This time, it's economic. Working-class Iranians, not middle-class intellectuals. The regime's response? Approximately 1,500 dead in 3 days. Internet blackout, mass arrests, then silence. The world barely noticed. 2022, Mahsa Amini protests. A 22-year-old woman dies in custody of the morality police. Her crime? Wearing her hijab improperly. Protests spread to 210 locations. Schoolgirls lead demonstrations. Women burn hijabs on camera. The slogan, Woman, Life, Freedom. At least 551 killed. Tens of thousands arrested. Forced televised confessions. Public executions of selected protesters charged with waging war against God. 3 months later, the protests fizzle. Same pattern every time. Economic or social trigger ignites demonstrations. Regime offers limited concessions while mobilizing security forces. Protests expand from narrow grievances to systemic demands. Death to the dictator. Down with the Islamic Republic. Regime reframes protesters as terrorists or foreign agents. Internet blackout. Live ammunition. Mass killings. Gradual suppression through arrests, executions, and exhaustion. The difference in 2025, the triggers converge. You've got currency collapse. You've got 52% inflation. You've got youth unemployment at 23%. You've got the June 2025 12-day war, where American forces destroyed 3 Iranian nuclear facilities and Israeli jets humiliated the IRGC, killing over 1,000 Iranians. And here's the psychological hammer. Syria's Assad, Iran's closest regional ally, fell in late 2024. Hezbollah in Lebanon got degraded. Hamas in Gaza is shattered. Iran spent billions propping up the axis of resistance, and now it's gone. So when protests erupt in December 2025, Iranians aren't just angry about bread prices, they're angry about everything. The economic incompetence, the regional humiliation, the 47 years of revolutionary rhetoric that promised dignity and delivered poverty. Let's go to the night that changed everything. January 8th, 2026. Evening. Reza Pahlavi, exiled crown prince, son of the Shah who got overthrown in 1979, has called for nationwide protests at a specific hour. Chant from your rooftops, he says, from your windows, coordinate. Show the regime you're everywhere. That morning, Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei delivers a speech. He doesn't acknowledge economic grievances. He doesn't promise reform. He calls protesters rioters under foreign influence. He uses the word sedition. He says this is orchestrated by Israel and the United States. That word sedition is the legal framework for unlimited violence. It's not protest anymore, it's war. At 8 p.m. Tehran time, as coordinated chants begin echoing through neighborhoods, something shifts. Security forces, IRGC, Basij militia, police, deploy across major cities with orders that eyewitnesses describe as shoot to kill. Not rubber bullets, not tear gas first, live ammunition, directly into crowds. In Karaj, Elboz province, Soleimani Hospital receives 87 dead bodies on January 8th alone. Parshan Hospital treats 423 injured. In Kermanshah, at least 217 protesters are killed in hospitals in a single night. In Tehran's Fardist district, Soleimani Hospital reports wounds consistent with close-range shotgun pellets and direct rifle fire. A medical worker describes it. They were using tear gas and stun grenades and shot directly at protesters. They even fired tear gas inside people's homes. They shot people with live ammunition, and several were injured. The people feel like they have nothing left to lose. At 8 p.m, internet connectivity across Iran drops to 1% of normal levels, near total blackout. Can't coordinate, can't document, can't call for help. The world goes dark. Why the internet shut down? 3 reasons. Prevents protesters from organising follow-up actions. Blocks external documentation of the violence. No videos means no international outrage. Creates information vacuum where the regime controls the narrative. State media says, armed terrorists opened fire. No footage to contradict it. The blackout lasts over 180 hours. 7.5 days of near-total digital silence. But here's what leaks out anyway. a 16-minute video from Karizak Forensic Center showing rows of bodies, pickup trucks dumping corpses, forensic staff labeling photos 47 of 250, 189 of 250, eventually surpassing 366 documented bodies at a single morgue. 2 eyewitnesses who visited Karizak searching for family members report seeing over 400 bodies. CBS News verifies footage showing at least 366 bodies, likely more than 400. Gunshot wounds, shotgun pellets, gashes, blood-soaked clothing piled in corners. Death toll estimates vary wildly. Official Iranian government sources, around 2,000. Human rights activist news agency, 2015 verified, acknowledging true figures are higher. Iran International, citing government sources and hospital data, at least 12,000. CBS News, citing activist groups inside Iran, between 10,000 and 20,000. Let me put that in context. The 2019 Bloody November protests killed approximately 500 in 3 days, and that was considered the bloodiest crackdown in modern Iranian history. January 8th, 2026, potentially quadruple that toll in a single night. Here's the thing that breaks the pattern. They don't stop, despite the internet blackout, despite thousands dead, despite tanks rolling through Tehran, despite the Justice Minister declaring on January 14th that anyone participating in protests after January 8th is guilty of internal war, which carries the death penalty. They keep going. In Tehran, protesters regroup in at least 20 neighbourhoods: Nizamabad, Ferdowsi Square, Sadatabad, Mirdamad, Valiasa. They light fires, block roads, chant, "Death to the dictator," and "This is the year of blood. Sayyid Ali will be overthrown." In Shiraz, demonstrators fight back with knives and machetes. In Mashhad, crowds force security forces to retreat in some areas. In Isfahan, large crowds chant Khamenei is a murderer, his rule is illegitimate, alongside monarchist slogans, "Long live the king." In Zahedan, southeastern Iran, thousands of Baluch citizens pour into streets after Friday prayers despite massive security deployment. Checkpoints, body searches, phone inspections. They march anyway. Why? What makes someone walk into gunfire? One protester explains it. "I'm not scared. For 47 years, I've been dead." Another. "They shot people with live ammunition. They fired tear gas inside people's homes. The people feel like they have nothing left to lose." There's a psychological threshold where fear stops working, where the threat of death becomes less terrifying than the reality of continued existence under the current system. Iranians are revealing, through their actions, that they'd rather risk death than accept another year of this. And here's what's different from previous uprisings: the ideological diversity. You've got students chanting "Death to the dictator." You've got workers chanting "Neither Gaza nor Lebanon, my life for Iran," rejecting the regime's foreign policy priorities. You've got women burning pictures of Khamenei with cigarettes in viral videos, and you've got monarchists chanting "Long live Reza Pahlavi," and "This is the last battle, Pahlavi will return." Monarchists, in Iran, in 2026. That's seismic. The Shah was deeply unpopular. Savak secret police, Western puppetry, authoritarian excess. For decades, the monarchy was political poison. But a generation of Iranians with no personal memory of the Shah now looks at the Islamic Republic and thinks, could the old system really have been worse than this? That's not nostalgia. That's despair so profound that previously illegitimate alternatives suddenly seem preferable. Now let's zoom out. Because this isn't just a domestic Iranian crisis. This is a potential flashpoint for the entire Middle East. January 2nd, 2026. President Donald Trump tweets that if Iran violently kills peaceful protesters, the US will come to their rescue. He declares, "We are locked and loaded and ready to go." January 12th. Trump announces that any country doing business with Iran will face 25% tariffs on trade with the United States, effective immediately. Economic strangulation beyond existing sanctions. January 13th. Trump tells Iranians that help is on its way, and warns that he'll impose severe consequences if the regime executes detained protesters. January 15th. Treasury Department sanctions 5 top Iranian officials, including Ali Larijani, Secretary of Iran's Supreme National Security Council. Meanwhile, the Pentagon reportedly presents Trump with military target options: Iran's nuclear facilities, ballistic missile sites, IRGC command and control structures. CNN reports US military assets positioning for potential strikes. And then there's Reza Pahlavi. The exiled crown prince positions himself as potential transitional leader. He claims 12,000 Iranians have been killed, unverified, but within the range of activist estimates. Speaking in Washington, he calls for military action targeting what he calls the architecture of repression, the IRGC's command structure. He introduces the Cyrus Accords, inspired by the Abraham Accords, to re-establish Iran's relations with Israel and Middle Eastern states. Here's the wild part. Some Iranians inside the country are chanting his name. Long live the king. Pahlavi will return. Whether Pahlavi has genuine domestic support or just represents a symbolic rejection of the current system is unclear. But his visibility gives international actors, particularly the US and Israel, a potential partner for regime change. The UN Security Council holds an emergency session January 15th. Assistant Secretary General Martha Pobey describes the situation as fluid and deeply concerning, warning that external military intervention adds volatility to an already combustible situation. G7 foreign ministers condemn brutal repression. European leaders, Macron, Starmer, Merz, express concern while cautioning against intervention. Iranian officials threaten retaliation. Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi tells Fox News that Iran is ready for negotiations with the US, but only with equal rights and mutual respect. Translation: we're terrified of military strikes, but we'll never admit it. So you've got mass domestic uprising demanding regime change, security forces killing thousands to maintain control, internet blackout preventing external verification, US threatening military strikes, exiled opposition leader positioning for power, regional powers watching nervously. This is 1979 in reverse. Except this time, the revolutionaries want the monarchy back. And this time, the world's most powerful military is openly threatening intervention. Let's forensic this. What are the actual odds of regime collapse? Scenario 1, revolutionary cascade. Protests continue. Security forces begin refusing orders. Junior officers see their neighbours, cousins, classmates getting shot. They defect. IRGC commanders lose control. The institutional glue holding the theocracy together dissolves. Reza Pahlavi or some transitional council takes power. The Islamic Republic ends. This happened in 1979. The Shah's military defected. Revolution succeeded not because protesters were armed, but because soldiers stopped shooting them. Scenario 2. Managed suppression. The regime accepts the economic cost of indefinite internet blackouts, estimated at over $100 million daily in economic disruption. Security forces maintain discipline through ideological indoctrination and material incentives. IRGC officers control massive portions of Iran's economy. Televised trials and selective executions establish deterrents. Protests shrink to manageable scale. The regime survives, bloodied but intact. This happened in 2009, 2019, and 2022. So which scenario wins? The pessimistic or realistic answer, Scenario 2 is more likely. Here's why. The IRGC's institutional resilience. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps commands at least 150,000 personnel. It reports directly to the supreme leader, not civilian government. It controls Iran's ballistic missile arsenal, nuclear program security, and vast economic holdings, construction, energy, banking, shipping. Estimates suggest IRGC-linked economic activities worth tens of billions of dollars annually. When the US assassinated IRGC General Qasem Soleimani in 2020, arguably the most powerful military figure outside the supreme leader, the organization didn't collapse. Successor General Esmail Khani stepped in, organizational continuity maintained. Decapitation strikes don't work against decentralized, ideologically motivated institutions with clear succession protocols. Telecommunications control. The regime can implement indefinite internet shutdowns. Without digital coordination, protests can't scale beyond face-to-face networks. And without external documentation, the world loses interest. The government has already demonstrated willingness to accept extraordinary economic costs to maintain power. That's not weakness. That's clarity about priorities. Lack of organised opposition. The current protests have no formal leadership, no unified political programme, no institutional structure for governance if the regime falls. Reza Pahlavi offers symbolic alternative. but substantial segments of Iranian society remain skeptical of monarchy, given historical memory. So even if the regime collapsed tomorrow, which is unlikely, what replaces it? Chaos? Civil war? A transitional government with no legitimacy? The 1979 revolution succeeded because multiple opposition groups united under Khomeini while Islamists controlled organizational infrastructure through mosques. The 2026 uprising has neither unity nor infrastructure. Here's what we know for certain. Iran crossed a threshold on January 8, 2026. Whether that threshold leads to revolutionary transformation or just another chapter in authoritarian survival is still unclear. The economic crisis is unresolved. The Rial remains in free fall. Inflation exceeds 52%. Youth unemployment sits at 23%. The June 2025 military humiliation by Israel and the US remains unaddressed. Syria's Assad is gone. The axis of resistance is shattered, and thousands of Iranians, maybe 2,000, maybe 12,000, maybe 20,000, are dead. The bodies at Karzak morgue aren't coming back. The internet blackout can't erase the videos that already leaked. The funerals will become new protests. The 40-day mourning cycles will bring new rounds of mobilization. This isn't over. The pattern suggests the regime will suppress this uprising like it suppressed the others, but patterns can break. The Shah thought he was invincible in 1977. By 1979, he was in exile. If you want to understand what happens next, you need to watch what happens with three variables. Does the internet blackout hold? If information flow resumes, external pressure intensifies. Do security forces maintain discipline? The moment junior officers start defecting, the cascade begins. Does Trump actually strike? A military intervention could either vindicate the regime's narrative of foreign conspiracy or decapitate its command structure. History doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. And right now, Iran sounds an awful lot like a poem we've heard before. If this forensic deep dive changed how you see the Middle East, hit subscribe. These collapses don't announce themselves, they just happen. And the people who see them coming are the ones who studied the ones that already did. Drop a comment. Type Team Pahlavi if you think the monarchy returns. Type Team Regime if you think the IRGC survives this. I read every single one. Now go watch the video on how the US is quietly erasing $38 trillion in debt. Because if you think Iran's the only government with a currency problem, you're not paying attention.